Welcome back to the kitchen, guys. Now, if you clicked on this recipe, there might be some of you here that was thinking this is some sort of joke or a goof that I said guinea pig pasta. It is not. We're going to be cooking with guinea pig today. It's a special kind of guinea pig that they raise in Peru. They refer to it as cuy. It's a pretty big guinea pig that is raised just for meat. So it's not the kind that you normally see in a pet shop. This is a pretty big guinea pig. It's about the size of a rabbit and has a very similar flavor. It's a delicacy in Peru, and that's what we're going to be using today. We will be cooking with a whole animal, so if anyone's squeamish about seeing that, you can turn this video off now. I haven't brought it in yet, but I'm about to grab it and bring it in. So this is a cuy. As you can see, it looks a lot like a rabbit. Similar size. They come from about 1 to 3 pounds depending on what you get. We got a pretty little guy today. This is what was available in the store. So this is about a pound. It's been cleaned. Everything is cleaned out and ready to go. That's how they come. They tend to come frozen. I mean, they're raised in Peru, so you're probably only going to find them frozen in the US if you can find them at all. Speaking of which, the reason this recipe got started is because I live in Brooklyn, right on the border of Queens. Queens is probably the most diverse food neighborhood in all of America. There's so many different ethnicities there. And my wife and I, we were walking down the street and we came across a street vendor that was roasting these Peruvian style over charcoal, and they looked amazing, they smelled amazing, and being a chef, I always want to try things. I gave it a try and I loved it, and I did find them frozen, and I wanted to kind of take and put my own spin on it because I do think it's really cool. The tradition is to roast these over coals and they're eaten whole. I'm gonna take it a different route. I'm gonna bring in something. I used to live in Tuscany. I lived in Florence. There is a pasta there that's called ragu con coniglio, ragu with rabbit, that was one of my favorite dishes. And when I tasted cuy, I noticed it tasted so much, because in Tuscany they use a local wild hare to make that dish, and this cuy tasted so much like that wild hare. I thought, I'm gonna do a ragu con coniglio, but con cuy in this situation. And we're gonna serve this over pasta, which is great because these are a little bit expensive imported, and making it into a sauce stretches it. So we can serve about 5 people with this small animal. Now, when we make ragu, we always start off by searing our rabbit in a hot pan. I'm gonna pay homage to what I saw that street vendor doing and what I know they do in Peru. And I'm actually gonna sear this over some open hardwood, an oak fire in my backyard, to bring some of that legendary Peruvian flavor to this sauce. So it's a real simple thing to do. We just need a little bit of neutral oil. I'm using soybean in this case, but you can use whatever you want. The neutral taste with a high smoke point is all you're looking for. I'm gonna rub it all over the outside of the skin. Just get it lubed up. That's gonna help to really sear off the outside quickly, which is what we want. We want that skin to sear quickly because we actually don't want to cook it all the way through. In this case, we're going to be braising it, so it cooks low and slow in a pot in the oven. That meat becomes super tender, fall off the bone, succulent, and we don't want to cook it all the way over the fire. We just want to get some smoke and some sear on the outside. So we're going to go high heat with some oil to conduct that heat so we get a nice brown sear, and then we're going to come back and we're going to finish it in a pot. Wait, I almost forgot. I want to show you guys real quick. It's a little device I use for searing things, small things like rabbits and fish and things like that. It opens up, pop the food right in, and then it closes on top, locks shut, and you just have a really nice, easy to flip little compartment for your food. So like I said, great for fish, great for rabbit, great for halves of chickens, things like that if you're cooking over the fire. All right, guys, as you can see, we've got a nice oak fire going here. We've let it burn down till it's mostly coals with just a little bit of flame, which is what we want for a sear without burning our cuy. We're gonna cook this about 3 minutes per side just to get some nice color. Let's give her a look-see. Yes. You can see we're getting some beautiful golden color and some nice rich oak smoke on that meat. Here's a little tool I use. It's called a blow poke. It's a poker that you can use to shift the logs around in your fire, but it also has a hole that you can blow through to stoke your fire if it starts to die. Get some oxygen in there, get it going. It's a really handy tool. Let's get a look. Beautiful color, crispy skin. We got good oak smoke on there. Let's get this inside and continue our recipe. Our cuy is seared off. It's time to make our ragu. And as with any ragu, we're gonna start with a mirepoix. So we've got some onion, carrot, celery, and garlic. Just a rough chop on these. Whenever I make a ragu, most of the time when I make a ragu, I like to use a food processor. I like to really chop up my vegetables a lot. I want them to really break down in the sauce and almost disappear. So a really fine mince in the food processor, to me, is the way to go with a ragu. Real quick, give them a good mince. So, get a fine chop on there. It's really gonna help them melt into that sauce. One other piece of prep for our ragu, we have to have some stock. A ragu is usually based on stock. We've got some chicken stock here. Now, if you have homemade stock, if you watch my channel, I've said this before, but if this is your first time tuning in, if you have homemade stock, absolutely use it. That's fantastic. If not, I'm gonna show you how to create a homemade-esque stock out of store-bought stuff. So we have some no salt chicken stock. Important that it's no salt. We're gonna reduce this way down so we don't want it to get too salty. I've got some leaf gelatin here. You can use the powdered Knox kind that comes in a package if you want. I prefer the leaf. You cannot skip this step. You have to have gelatin in that stock because we're gonna reduce this to a sauce with no tomatoes. This is a no tomato sauce. So if you don't have gelatin, when you go to reduce, it's just gonna evaporate. I'm just gonna get this hydrated. It's always a good idea to hydrate your gelatin first so it doesn't clump up when it hits the heat. So just pop it into that stock. And then our one other addition to make this more like homemade is I like to use a teaspoon of this Better Than Bouillon just to pump up the flavor. I have turkey today. You can use chicken too if you want. Turkey's what they had at the store. Any poultry version for this recipe is perfect. This is salty. That's another reason why we use a salt-free stock. And a little bit goes a long way. Just gonna take a few minutes to hydrate. Let's get to sauteing some bacon. Dutch oven is great for this because we're going from the burner into the oven, but any heavy bottom pan will do. Get it on medium heat. A little bit of butter goes in. Got a couple slices of diced bacon here. Normally in one of these rabbit ragus, we would use pancetta. That's an unsmoked Italian bacon, but since we are working with a smoky, fire-cooked cuy, I decided to go with an American smoked bacon. I just think that matches nicely. Guinea pig is indigenous to the New World, so let's use some New World bacon. We're gonna take this till it just starts to crisp up. Our bacon is starting to get crispy. It's what we want. We're gonna go in with our veggies. We also have a bay leaf and 3 sage leaves and a little bit of fresh black pepper. Sauteing veg in a little bit of butter and bacon fat, such great flavor. It's gonna take about 10 minutes for these vegetables to get browned. We are starting to get some nice color on our veg, exactly what we're looking for. So let's go in with our white wine. Any dry white will do. I'm using Chardonnay, it has a nice oakiness to it. Get this up to a simmer. We've got a nice simmer. We're gonna let this simmer down till the pan is almost dry. We do that, that's called taking it to sec in the culinary world. That's just French for dry. The reason we do that is because it cooks off some of the harsher compounds in the wine, leaving it a little bit more mellow, and you just get that nice acidity and the fruitiness and everything you want. Speaking of French words, I've said several times that we're making a ragu today, and we are. Ragu is Italian for meat sauce. Any sauce that you're making with a meat is a ragu, but that is actually a borrowed word from French where ragu means stew. So in French they call a stew a ragu, in Italian you call a meat sauce a ragu, and you can see where those are related because a meat sauce is essentially just a stew that you cook down until it turns into a sauce. So as we can see, that pan is just about dry. There's a nice sizzle from the oil again. That's a good sign. That means you've gotten all the water out, you're back to oil, and oil can get a lot hotter than water, and that's what drives off the harshness from the wine. So that's ready to go. Time to go in with our stock. Remember, our gelatin is bloomed in here, but it's not melted yet. Takes the heat to melt it. We are at a simmer. It's time to add that cuy back in. Here's our little guy that was all grilled up. When you're doing a braise, you want it to be about 3/4 covered with liquid, which is what we got here. Cover the pot most of the way, but not all the way. We want some steam to be able to escape. We want reduction to happen in the oven. The oven is at 275 degrees, nice and low and slow. We're gonna cook this so it doesn't dry out. It just is succulent. It's fall off the bone tender. It takes about 2 hours, depending on the size of your cuy. You're just gonna check for tenderness, see that that meat is coming away from the bone, and about an hour in, you wanna flip the cuy over so that it cooks evenly on both sides. Our cook is finished. Let's get a look. That is looking nice. Let's check for tenderness. I got a little cake tester here. You can use a fork or a paring knife, but just poking through, yep, completely tender. That pushes right through, right down to the bone. Exactly what we're looking for. Perfect tenderness. Covering it back up, because we're gonna have to pick that meat off the bones, which means this has to cool down before we can handle it, obviously. You always wanna let your braises cool in the liquid covered. That way they don't lose all their moisture and dry out. So we're just gonna leave this on our counter. We're gonna let it cool down until we can handle it, and then we're gonna pick all the bones out so we have a nice clean sauce. All right, guys, our little beastie is done and cooled. We are gonna start picking. Now, whether you're working with cuy or a rabbit, it's inevitable. They have a lot of tiny little bones because they're little creatures. So you got to get in there and you got to find them so that nobody's eating bones. So glove up. If you wear glasses, get them on and just get in here and start working. You're going to need a container to put the bones in and a container to put the good meat in. As you can see, I mean, the bones just come right out. Like when I say it's fall off the bone tender, there's a bone, it's totally clean. That goes in the bone jar. You are going to be keeping the skin. This is all going to get chopped in the end, and we are going to keep the skin and chop it in with the meat because it's really delicious. You can even peel all the skin off in one go if you're so inclined. Again, save the skin. And there are our bones, and here is our meat. We're gonna chop this meat up and we will add it to our sauce at the end. Speaking of our sauce, take a quick look. That slowly braised meat released all its juices into that broth, made a beautiful sauce. We are gonna reduce this down now until it thickens up, and then that's when we'll add our meat and our final seasonings, and we'll get our pasta in. We're gonna have an amazing meal. Our guinea pig is picked. It is time for reduction and final seasoning. We have here, I've taken out our spent bay leaf and our spent sage leaves. We're done with those, and we're gonna put some fresh ones in. So we got some fresh sage, a little bit of fresh bay, some ground fennel, ground allspice, and a touch of sugar just to make it a little bit sweet. I'm gonna stir those in, bring this up to a simmer, and we are gonna reduce to a thick, kind of syrupy or semi-syrupy consistency. One thing you'll notice is I kind of moisten that stuck-on side foam with the broth, and then I scrape it off. That's good flavor, and we want it to dissolve into our sauce. I guess if we're sticking with the French, I should call it côté instead of foam for side instead of bottom, but whatever. We have reduced by about half. We've got a nice emulsified, glazy consistency, exactly what we're looking for. So we're gonna kill the heat. And then off the heat, we're gonna add our last 2 tablespoons of cold butter, stirring that in continuously until it's fully melted and emulsified. That's called mounting the sauce with butter. Our last little flavoring, thickening step. Of course, you see we don't yet have the meat back in. I like to hold the meat back until we add our pasta right at the end. It just warms it through and keeps it from getting overcooked. Very thick now. You can see a little bit when I drag. You can see the bottom of the pan. For a second there, that's good. Let's see if we can get a shot of nappe on a spoon. If we can, I don't know if we'll be able to see it on camera, but leaves a little line where the sauce was. Now, remember, we used a no salt broth, but we had bacon here. We had a little bit of bouillon, which had some salt, and the meat itself has some natural salt once you've reduced everything down. So we're just gonna have to go by taste to see how salty it is. Almost there, just about there. I'm just gonna add a little touch more salt. That's why we use a no salt broth, because if we had started with a salted broth, this would be too salty right now. Spot on, exactly what we want. Let's get our pasta ready. We've come down to it, guys. We're gonna bring it all together. Now I transferred my sauce to a nice big wok because I'm gonna do all 5 servings at once just because they make wonderful leftovers. So my wife and I will eat them today and then over the next few days. Now you can pair any pasta you want with this. I personally am gonna use, if I'm gonna make a nice sauce, I'm gonna make a nice pasta. So I made these beautiful strozzapreti homemade pasta today. It's a great shape to pair with ragu. Those little twisted shapes work really well with meat sauces. Strozzapreti is great, fusilli, casarecci, anything that's like small and twisted is a great choice. Those are super easy to make. I shot a video of how to make those start to finish from scratch. It is one of your most basic pastas. So if you want to get into homemade pasta making, I will link that video below and at the end of this because it goes great with this sauce. I'm gonna pop those. Those are fresh. They'll only take, I got some water over here boiling, well salted water, always salted water for pasta because pasta has no salt in the dough. So fresh pasta, this will probably only take a couple minutes. If you're using a dried pasta, cook it according to package directions, and then we're gonna marry it with this sauce. Pasta is done, sauce is simmering. We're gonna get the pasta directly into the sauce. Always a good idea to get a little bit of pasta water in your sauce. The starches help everything emulsify. You wanna marry the pasta with the sauce so everything's coated, and we have our reserved chopped meat from the qui. Get it all stirred together. Holding that meat back to the very end keeps it from overcooking or drying out. It's a lot of pasta, that's why we got a big pan. And you don't have to do this all at once, you can do a few servings at a time if you like, it's up to you. It's always good to beat the pasta up a little bit to release those starches. Let's see if we can do it with 5 servings. Here we go. I like to get a little fresh Parmigiano Reggiano right at this point. Just kind of fold it in, and then we can top it later. All right, let's get this on a plate and give it a taste. Moment of truth, let's get a plate of this. So excited. I served this last night at a dinner party. Guys, I always test my recipes on lots of people before I bring them to you. I usually have a dinner party every night before I shoot just to get a final test from a lot of people, and man, people went crazy for this. They couldn't believe they were eating guinea pig, technically. But it is really delicious. Like I said, it tastes a lot like rabbit. It's a really light, flavorful, rich sauce. But here we go. Get some final Parmesan on there. You always got to finish it a bit. That's the stuff, guys. Oh man, is that the stuff. Give him another one. That is good pasta. That is why pasta is just God's gift to the culinary world. There's nothing like a great plate of pasta. That strozzapreti, it's got such a nice bite. It clings to the sauce. Those little twists just kind of match with the little bits of meat and catch it all on there. It's got the nice amount of chew, fresh homemade pasta. But that sauce, guys, I'm telling you, qui. It's where it's at. I know that not everybody can get qui in their hometown, but most places, most cities, you can still find a rabbit if you go to the right place, and a rabbit will do the exact same thing. They're very similar. Qui is just like rabbit in that it's a mammal, but it's a white meat mammal, so it's light, but it's rich. It really coats that pasta, but it's not overwhelming or heavy. It's everything you want in a ragu, and just a really cool sauce, guys. I mean, just a great way to explore another culture like Peru, but then marry it with a European culture like Italy and get this perfect marriage, this wonderful new kind of dish. I love it. It's really exciting for me to do interesting stuff like that. Like I said, I know that not all of you will be able to get qui, but a rabbit is a great substitute. You learned how to make a qui ragu or a rabbit ragu, and that's how it's done, guys. Remember, check out that video for the strozzapreti pasta because it is the perfect pairing with this, and it's a very easy homemade pasta to cut your teeth on. I will link it below. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time on Bobby's Kitchen.